York's classic rock, Q1043.
Welcome back. Jonathan Clark here on Q1043's Out of the Box. We are joined on the phone by a Rock and Roll Hall of Famer. His new album, or his current album, I should say, Carry Fire, the 11th solo album. And he's playing at the Beacon Theater in New York City, February 14th, Valentine's Day. Robert Plant, how are you, man?
Well, I'm very well. I feel very Valentine-like already, and it's only whatever it is, January.
Yeah, so do you have any special plans for the audience for Valentine's Day? Any throwing of roses from the stage or anything like that?
I might cast a few aspersions. That's about it, really.
Well, the first deeply probing question I have for you is, so it's a new year, so what is your position on saying how long do you say Happy New Year to people? Do you say it through January, or do you stop like on January 2nd?
Yeah, the latter, definitely.
You stop on January 2nd, okay.
Sure, yeah. And, Russian New Year is the 7th of January, I think. Every calendar is different anyway. It's just like, but yeah, it gets a little bit like, get the tree down, let's just get back to business quick, and not so much worrying about, after a while it's all a bit like, still Happy New Year.
Well, what is your position on this? Like, for example, the last week of December, when you know you're not going to see somebody until, the next week, do you ever say, see you next year?
No. Because you can never be sure,
Exactly. Well, first, I saw this very funny interview of your football team. I guess this was back in October, where the reporter was on the field asking your players how good of a player you are. And you know what I'm talking about, right?
Sure, yeah. But it was, in fact, my village soccer team.
Oh,
and,
what is their name?
And it'd been the Queen's Head Sports and Social Club, Five-a-Side, and Bullying Old People Society.
But I've read that you still play like every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. if your schedule allows.
Yeah, well, it's good fun, and it can get a little bit dangerous because it's a gym. It's just inside a gymnasium. It's it's one-touch soccer, so you just got to push the ball and move into space. It's good fun, and everybody laughs at each other, and sometimes there's a little bit of can get a little bit heated at times, but that's what it's all about.
Exactly. Well, I read an interesting quote in a review of this album that said something to the effect that Robert Plant is one of the very few artists of his stature in the history of rock and roll that is still willing to experiment, and even fewer artists succeed at doing that. You are one of them. And when I read that quote, one other artist came to mind immediately when I read that, and that was David Bowie. And I thought then that if you think about it, you have always been like this, even during the Zeppelin days. Every album was really different. So this is really not new to you at all, where other people think it might be, but you've always been doing this.
What has Led Zeppelin 1 got to do with Houses of the Holy, or what's one thing got to do with another? You just grow and you absorb. If you want to, you can get lost in music. It's especially now, as the information highways that are what they are, and with YouTube and stuff like that, it's remarkable what you can find. But it's just as remarkable. Like this year, we'll be playing through the United States, not once, but I think twice, and in Australia. But the twist comes when we get to the summertime and we play in Istanbul. We play in Georgia, in Tbilisi, which was once a satellite Soviet state. We go through these places, through Romania and places like that, where you hear music in the cafes and in the streets that it's so far out to listen to that stuff, and its effect is it's kind of subliminal in a way. It just kind of creeps into you, just like if we go back to the West Coast music in the United States, and to some degree over on the east side of the U.S. If you think about Big Brother and the Holding Company and Jefferson Airplane, people like that, the sort of Indo-fusions that were taking place in music, there's always been great collisions of, or not collisions, meldings of style, and if you can pull it off, and you know that it's a kind of hybrid. It's something on the corner of what might have been called rock at one point in time, and it moves across to some other place. Then it becomes very exciting and challenging, and you get some kind of artistic kickback. You may fade into obscurity at the same time, but who cares? You didn't start off by hedging your bets and trying to sound like Bobby Vinton. So,
yeah, all the traveling that you've done over the years and all of these places. I mean, you mentioned places like Istanbul and Georgia on this tour, and Romania. All of this, you've really absorbed the musical influences that maybe you've heard in a cafe or just in a club after a show, going to see some really obscure artist, and which leads me to the Sensational Space Shifters, which is like the perfect band name for them. They are so good, and you guys have really found your groove after playing together now for quite a while. I guess you've been touring with them on and off since like 2002 or something, right?
That's right, yeah. Yeah, it might have been 2001, but whatever it is, it's morphed a bit, because in the beginning, Paul Thompson from The Cure was playing guitar, and Clive Deamer was with us, and he went off. He's with Radiohead now. And we've kind of reached a place where we've found a real groove and a place to be, and yeah, it's like a cooperative. Nobody gets in the way of anybody. It's a very neat and exciting exchange of energy and idea, which it keeps us really excited about what we do, because obviously you play some of the same songs forever. Yeah, but it's like a good joke. It's how you tell them. You can print it out on a piece of paper. It doesn't look so funny. But if you tell it right, it's okay.
His name is Robert Plant. And I want to ask you, how do you listen to your favorite music these days? Is it on a phone with headphones, or is it in front of speakers, or a combination of both?
Oh, everything. Yeah. Yeah, I carry a little module speaker thing around with me, which I can Bluetooth from whatever medium I want, laptop or whatever it is, or phone. But, for good EQ and to get some grind into the whole sound, then it's the deck. And a guy at Warner's about 3 or 4 years ago, I was in his office playing the first mixes of the previous record, Lullaby and the Ceaseless Roar, and he got these NS1000 Yamaha speakers that they just sounded like, they made the whole thing sound like Ben-Hur on acid. So,
I love that.
Yeah, so it was just like the ultimate gargantuan, powerful groove. And quite a lot of the tracks on the last record, previous record, were grooves, really, with some vocal nuance and instrumentation, but there was a lot of groove going on. So so off the turntable.
The reason I ask that is I have Carry Fire on my phone, so I listen to it on the headphones, on the subway here in New York City, which is great. But I also drive to Vermont a lot, and this album is really like it's like a fantastic road trip album too. I just play it all the way through. It's really transporting.
Well, you need to have some kind of preamp. You got to have something beyond the actual amp on the telephone, because you need to get a little bit of juice in the thing. But you probably got that in the car anyway, so that makes sense. But yes, it is. Thank you for saying that. I mean, I do feel that the songs live they're like a kind of family of emotions and music, and they live side by side. And it's a hell of a deal to try and piece together a running order as if it were the old days when one song had to have some kind of cohesion and brotherhood with the next one, or whatever it is. You can spend weeks and weeks moving songs around and seeing what will flow, and even the length of time between tracks. So Yeah, thanks. It does feel a bit like that.
It's Robert Plant with us. His latest album is Carry Fire, and he'll be at the Beacon Theater in New York City, February 14th, Valentine's Day. You had Chrissie Hynde come in and sing on a song called Bluebirds Over the Mountain. Well, this was a song done by Richie Valens and the Beach Boys back in the day. She sounds great on this. Did you have her voice in mind when you decided to put this on the album?
No, I had my voice in mind. And then I realized that because I really do enjoy her style. She's got a fantastic, quite a remarkable individual style. She could, I think she could probably sing the menu from a Chinese restaurant. It would sound really seductive. Yeah, so I approached her, and I'd known her, I'd met her a few times over the years, and I sent her the track, and I think she was expecting it to sound any other way than it did. So her responses there were a lot of expletives and stars and explosions. When she said, psychedelia is alive and well in this music, so count me in. And in she went. You
moved back to Wales after living in Austin, Texas for a few years. Do you miss the tacos or the queso or the Lone Star beer?
I miss the people there. I miss the friends that I had. I miss the company that I kept. And I miss the music from there. My friend Steve runs the Continental Club on South Congress, and Sunday nights I used to go and see Junior Brown playing.
Oh, he's the greatest. Oh, my God.
Far out. So good. I mean, I could just walk down the block and leave my lady and just say, I've got to go and see Junior Brown again, and then again. And so I did, when I was promoting the release of this, recently, about two or 3 months ago, when I came over to New York to do some stuff for Carry Fire, I popped down to Austin and saw Patty Griffin, and we trekked around a little bit, and it was great to come back and start going into hill country again. And I'm very blessed with the friends that I made and the friends that I keep, and it's cool, it's great. But I just had to get back to where I come from, I guess. Back to the soccer, back to the mad lunatics that I know here. There's never a dull moment in the game that I play.
It's Robert Plant. His new album is Carry Fire. Beacon Theater, Valentine's Day, February 14th. I want to ask you about the May Queen, the opening track on the album, which has nothing to do with Stairway to Heaven. But what can you tell us about this song?
Well, the lyrics kind of sum it all up. But the May Queen, it basically, trees were considered, and still are considered, to carry great gifts for us humans, gifts of healing, gifts of signs of the changing of the seasons and all that stuff, And where I come from on the Welsh borders, the hawthorn is known as the May tree and the May Queen, because she comes in flower at almost the beginning of the 5th month of the year. And so a little bit like following Easter, which was the kind of rebirth and the period of celebration of the dark days moving away, the May Queen is a symbol of the beckoning and the kind of coming of the warm weather in the north of Europe. And so the May Queen's always been this particular tree, small tree, that tells us that the dark days have gone.
Do you ever have time to go to the movies?
Oh, yeah.
I want to ask you about two films in particular, one of which I've seen, one I want to see. The first one is The Darkest Hour. Have you seen that?
I'm going to see it tonight after soccer.
Ah, okay. Gary Oldman is brilliant. I mean, he's incredible. The other one is Dunkirk.
Yeah, I've seen that. Gosh. Sheesh. Yeah, my father was... he wasn't evacuated. He was waiting to go, and he ended up going back D-Day. And like a lot of people my age and around my age, their fathers never really spoke too much about Dunkirk or D-Day. It was something that they carried quietly in the kind of darkest corner of their, I guess, their memory. And yeah, it was a very emotive film. I mean, people isn't it funny how you can criticize something? Maybe movie critics or whatever found something to complain about. I just thought it was a remarkable overview of a particularly dramatic period, and and all those little towns along the south coast of Britain where all those guys came from with the boats. It was a very, very emotive and a remarkable feat.
Well, I think it's good that you're seeing Darkest Hour tonight, because that comes up in this movie that you're going to see tonight. So I think you'll enjoy that. His name is Robert Plant. His new album is Carry Fire. Everyone go out and get it. It's fantastic. And by all means, go see Robert at the Beacon Theater, February 14th, Valentine's Day. Robert, always a pleasure to speak with you, and thank you so much for giving us the time. Cool. Yeah, take it easy, guys. And if I can get the phone book out, I can remember who to call. Can't I say? Yeah, right. Yeah, bring some roses, throw them out from the stage. You never know. Just people might get engaged at your concert or something. It might be amazing, you know. Yeah, you never know. Okay, nice to talk to you. Take it easy. Thank you, Robert. Take care. Thanks. Bye-bye.
New York's classic rock, Q1043.